How you doing, guys? It's been a while since I've made a video, but I have very exciting news. We've actually just released our own brand, so BTR's own turbo, and also a manifold that would work for the 2010 through 2014 Hyundai Genesis Coupe 2.0 turbo. So we have years of experience working on these cars since they first came out. 2010 was when we started working on these, and throughout the years we had different types of kits come out from other places. We put together different kits using different parts. Like we used to use Garrett, and then we went over to Arashi and you started using Arashi turbos. We relied on other manufacturers to basically bring us parts. That way we can put together an easy kit for you guys to actually use. Instead, we decided to make our own because by depending on other manufacturers make these parts, it was creating a lot of delays. It was creating a lot of delays, a lot of issues with compatibility with the two different parts and things like that. Um, it was impossible for us to quality control within ourselves because obviously they were not our products. We were just putting them together so that it's easier for you guys, for the end users, to install and use. So finally, we broke down and said, you know what, we're just going to do it on our own. So we actually made our own turbo and we made our own manifold and made some improvements compared to those that were already on the market. Um, with our knowledge of what we know works on these cars and what we know the shortcomings of the older kits were, we were able to make some improvements on it. So I'm gonna switch over to my other video of actually showing you this new product, and I'll go over it with you on why this is a better product, the product that you should actually look into. If even if you have our older kits, this might actually be something that you want to upgrade to as well. So let's get started. All right, let's take a look at our brand new 500 horsepower capable BTR drop-in turbo kit for the 2010 through 14 Hyundai Genesis Coupe 2.0 turbo. This particular turbo we're seeing right now is the BTR GC3071 ball bearing turbo. There's going to be two versions of the turbos, the 3071 and the 3076. Both are going to be ball bearing to ensure that you get the quickest spool possible and also have the best top end possible out of the two turbos. Um, these turbos are going to be internally wastegated. So if you take a look, the internal wastegate flap is still there, the internal wastegate arm, and the actuator is on top of the turbo. However, if you take a look at the manifold, you can see that we actually have a flange here that's capped off. That is a tile MVS type flange. So you could always block off the internal wastegate and add a tile MVS external wastegate to turn this into an external wastegate setup. The manifold is made out of Schedule 40 stainless steel. It is welded throughout, inside and outside each flange to make sure that nothing is going to crack. Everything is built to perfection. Everything will fit up without any issues. The actual turbo kit itself is assembled before it is shipped out to you. That way, it makes your job a lot easier when installing. All the hardware we use are actually locking hardware to make sure they don't back out on you. So if you can see that the bolts that we use actually have locking washers underneath them. Um, and here, one other thing to help that from actually backing out and also prevent cracking of the manifold is we actually supply a mount that goes on the bottom of the turbo, just like the OEM turbo. So when you take the OEM turbo out, you'll see that there is a bracket that's going to bolt up to the turbo, and then it bolts the other side of the bracket bolts to the block. Okay, so you see those two holes there. That's going to bolt to the block. The hole here, there's two holes there. My thumb's covering it, but the two holes there is going to bolt to the turbo. So now you're going to have a very solid piece of turbo kit that's not going to have its weight just hanging on to the manifold. It's actually going to have bracket underneath that's holding everything up, making sure everything is solid. That no one piece is taking on more stress than it should. It does come with different types of springs for the wastegate. You're really not going to need that at all. but it comes with it. This is the gasket for the O2 housing on the back. You could always use a BK1 style um, O2 housing. And also, one other thing is it does come with a drain, oil drain fitting. I wouldn't use that. I would definitely reuse the OEM fitting, but you can use the bolts and the gasket that comes with it. It does come with a little piece of paper that tells you what to look out for when you go to install it. For example, make sure all the oil feed bolts, banjo, oil feed hose, everything is tight and clean and nothing is leaking. Make sure there's nothing in the exhaust manifold, and make sure to pre-oil the turbo before you let the engine run, and things like that. So basically, go over that when you receive the turbo. Each turbo also goes through a vibration test. You'll actually see this piece of paper in every single one of our turbos. They will spin it up to 100,000 RPMs to make sure the turbo is nice and balanced and it's not going to have crazy amount of vibrations. So we're trying to make sure the turbo is going to last you a long time. Um, with that said, the turbo also features a OEM style blow off valve or bypass valve as they call it on there as well. You can always block that off if you wanted to, or you can use it as well if you don't have one on the cold side. Right now, we're showing the locking hardware that we have on there. These are special locking hardwares that shouldn't back out on you. We've tested it on multiple kits. We really haven't had much issues there. Um, Especially when you have the bottom bracket that we showed earlier on there, you won't have any issues whatsoever. All right, so a couple points that I want to point out with the kit now that we're back from the overview video. The new manifold features a very strong steel, so stainless steel, Schedule 40, super thick. Again, welded throughout. Make sure that everything is perfect, everything fits perfect. That you're not going to have any cracking issues. Um, Other manifolds on the market in the past had cracking issues due to one, using poor quality material, and two, not having a bracket underneath. So we've actually tackled both by giving you a thicker, better piping or better material in that sense, and also supplying you with the right bracket on the bottom to make sure the manifold isn't holding up all the weight in the world on its weld. So nothing's going to break on you. Everything will be nice and solid. Also, being that it is a thicker material compared to other brands that we've been using, it should do better with heat management under your hood as well. Okay, the thinner ones, I'm sure you've seen it before, where they heat up and it gets super red, um, and it creates a lot, an enormous amount of heat underneath the hood or the engine bay area. This should do a little bit better than that because of how thick it is. Um, and then the biggest feature that I love about this new manifold that I've been pushing for is the new tile MVS type external wastegate port that we have on there. It will always ship with the block off plate on because we assume you're not going to go that route right away. And it's just a simple, 11 mil that you just take off the clamp and the cap just pops right off, and you can install a tile MVS type on there. Now, a lot of people don't realize that just by adding the wastegate, you can actually expect some horsepower increases. I made a video on this, which I will link up above here. Um, but going from an internal wastegate turbo to an external wastegate turbo, a lot of times you're going to gain a lot more power than you would assume, because a lot of these internal gated turbos, including the ones that were in the past, like the Arashi turbos, the Garrett turbos that all had the BK1 style flange, and also our new turbo, which also features the BK1 style flange. When we use an internal wastegate, it actually creates some turbulence. And a lot of the tuners will complain about, hey, I think the turbo can do a little bit more, but the wastegate is kind of getting in its way. Okay. So, with that said, the way our turbo kit comes with an internal wastegate is going to do really well for what it's set up for. But if you decide to upgrade to a tile MVS external wastegate and block off the internal wastegate from working, you're going to see even bigger gains per psi, and that's the biggest upgrade that I can actually tell you guys right now compared to the older turbo kits, is that now you have the ability to put on an external wastegate. So even those guys, you guys that have actually purchased our old kits, even with the years back when you did the Kamek turbos or even Kinugawa turbos, and then the Garrett turbo, the ATP turbo, and then the Arashi turbo of late. Um, you can actually take advantage of our new manifold, because we will sell these in two separate pieces as well, not just the full turbo kit. You can actually just get the manifold, and change out your old manifold with this one. Remove the internal wastegate, throw on a tile MVS wastegate, and enjoy more power per boost. So, I mean, obviously, you're going to need another custom tune, but without upgrading your internals, without upgrading anything else, just by throwing on a wastegate and a tune, you're going to see better performance out of your car, better spool rate, better power up top, better power overall. It's it's a win-win situation in every scenario. For those of you that need to pass emissions, this will help you pass emissions as long as it's not a visual inspection. Okay. So a lot of states will do OBD style, where where you just plug in an OBD, check for any type of fault codes and things like that. Um, this will pass if you run a BK1 style, so 2010 through 12 style, um, catalytic converter. So when you go to actually purchase the turbo, we do have a drop down option where you can select the MagnaFlow catalytic converter that would bolt straight onto this, and it will help you pass emissions. Okay. With the cat, you will make slightly less horsepower than without the cat. However, when you add the external wastegate to it, you pretty much make up for the difference like that. Okay. So I wanted to make sure that we brought out a kit that everybody can use, maybe except California, because California, I do believe they check under the hood to make sure that everything is carb. So everybody except California is going to be able to use this by throwing it in their car, using the MagnaFlow, the high flow catalytic converter, and using either the external wastegate or internal wastegate, whatever setup you want. And the fact that this will work on a completely stock car to something that's fully built, with the external wastegate running 30 pounds of boost and things like that, this kit is going to be a very, very fun kit for you. And if you made it this far in the video, I would like to explain the power output that you can expect from these turbo kits. So on the basic setup of just the turbo and the manifold internal wastegate, on a BK1, you're going to see on a manual around 340, 350 wheel horsepower. Pretty simple at around 20 psi or so. You are going to need aftermarket injectors. I would suggest at least a 750cc. Don't go much bigger than that, because if you do, tuning gets a little bit tougher with larger injectors that are larger than needed. Um, as for the 2.0T automatic BK1, the transmission on those are pretty much the worst transmission out of the four transmissions available for the Genesis Coupe. Um, it will probably put down around 260 wheel horsepower or so at 20 psi. Um, when it comes to BK2s, the manual version will be able to run around 23 psi, which should put down around 380 to 390 wheel horsepower conservatively. The BK2 automatic, the 8-speed automatic, will put down around 360, 370 wheel horsepower or so, conservatively at 23 psi. Now, I'm giving you conservative numbers because I have seen better numbers than that before too. 400 wheel horsepower at 23 psi and such. But I would like to keep things a little conservative. That way, you're not expecting the moon, and I'm only delivering you halfway to the moon. Okay. Now we do advertise the kit as 500 crank horsepower kit. The reason being is once you add the add the external wastegate, or even just turn up the boost once your engine is fully built, you can achieve that 500 crank horsepower fairly easily. Um, that's what the kit is capable of. Obviously, even at 400 wheel horsepower or 390 wheel horsepower on a BK2, if you calculate that out, you're at like 470 horsepower at the crank already. So yeah, 500 is very doable in the kit, um, and maybe even beyond that if you decide to end up pushing the turbo further with the external wastegate. So plenty of room for you to upgrade into in the future. Plenty. It's I just feel like we created the best kit that gets you from the beginning to the end without having to switch a lot of things out. All you have to do is just throw the wastegate on, build the engine, and shoot for the moon that way. Um, so I hope you guys enjoy what we brought out. It's been a long time in making, um, and yeah, check us out for your next turbo kit. Thanks for watching. Peace.